Are we still on the trail? Is this pack getting heavier? More switchbacks? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves
Just a little further. You got this.
that we find only outside.
Wow. Look at the stars. This is incredible.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
It is September 11th, and for the last 23 years, there has been a vocal group of people that has never believed the official story of September 11th. They are kind of treated by a lot of polite company and by the mainstream press as if they either don't exist or they're absolutely crazy. And I wanted to showcase some of these views, not because I necessarily agree with them. In fact, I don't. I'm skeptical to use the term that I believe the government's version of events, but I don't believe that many of the popular 9/11 conspiracy theories that you've heard over the years. But I do think it's important for everybody to hear these explanations and this analysis and these opinions. It's important to know that the people who share these views, they're not dumb. They're not insane. They're not aliens foaming at the mouth from some other place. They're very intelligent people who've looked at this and come to a different conclusion. I also think it's important for people to know why they believe something that we're told by the mainstream media is so out of whack with where polite company should be. This is one of the honest-to-God third rails in American media today. Who knows? Maybe they'll come for me after this. But no issue should be a third rail with a refusal to be addressed. No one. Oh, by the way, I would love to just have a real discussion about this. And I'd love to have a kind of a respectful debate about this. And I invited several of the debunkers on this show to be a part of this segment and to have a direct discussion. None of them were available. Now, they all said that this was too late for them or too early. But one would think if this was an important issue for them to debunk, that the people I invited would have come on and been heard. And the last reason that I'll point out is it's so easy to dismiss people's theories that are contrary to your own without hearing them. And maybe they're not right on everything, but maybe they're right on something. For instance, I think the official story is still that the Saudis didn't aid al-Qaeda in the September 11th attacks. I don't believe that for an instant. So what other lies are we being told and why? I'm joined by two people that have spent a lot of time over the years on this issue. Mike Berger is the executive director of 911truth.org, and Roland Engel is the CEO and president of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He also served in the U.S. Army Special Forces. Mike, Roland, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I know it's late.
Thank you, Frank. Pleasure to be here. Hi, Roland.
Thanks, Mike.
So you guys know one another, I guess.
We do not.
No, I
okay.
do not. I've
okay.
never met Mike.
Even better. So let me begin with you, if I can, Mike, and then and I'll ask you to weigh in as well, Roland. Did you always have doubts about the official story of September 11th? Were you immediately suspicious, or did you come to doubt the official story over time?
First, I was born where you were, Frank. My father took me to watch the towers getting built. I was born in Brooklyn. I believe you were born in Brooklyn. So no, I did not. On the morning of, I got a call from a friend, turned on the TV, saw the second plane. I did not immediately think anything about terrorism, just how I thought it was blowback. But in 2003, in March, I found some people online who had claimed that wealthy investors had foreknowledge. So I set out to debunk that because I don't have a theory. I can show you facts that you can go verify. Do not take my word on this. These were all in mainstream media. This is not concocted garbage that the media portrays that, quote, people with tinfoil hats believe. So the first thing was I went to the Chicago Board of Options Exchange website and looked up the charts of options on all of the airlines. And there was a strange pattern. I was not the only one to notice it. The financial press wrote about it. There were put options on United and American, but not on Delta, Continental, or any of the other major airlines in any significant degree. But on United and American, the percentage of bets that the price would fall, a put option, there was an enormous spike. And the commission said that they would answer who was behind these trades, because trades are mark to market. They know what account they came out of, who made these bets a week or two before 9/11. And they never revealed it. Their claim was, and you can look this up in the commission report, that an investor newsletter writer recommended shorting the airlines. But they know who made those trades. They were never made public. And also, when Building 7 collapsed, the SEC had their offices in there with many, many files that disappeared that day. So financially, most people do not talk about the financial side of 9/11. And there is an enormous publicly talked about in the news media, but you have to go back years, and you have had to have found it then and archived it, because it disappears.
At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm talking with Mike Berger and Roland Angle. Sorry, finish your thought, and then I'd like to get Roland to weigh in as well.
Yeah, so for example, there were many, many financial crimes. These were not the only ones. 9/11 was an incredibly large financial crime on an incalculable level. The day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference where he said the Pentagon was missing $2.3 trillion. And then the next day, Flight 77 flies into the side of the Pentagon that had just been renovated with Kevlar skin and bomb-proof windows. And if you look up who perished in the Pentagon, many of them were the financial accountants who had put together that financial report. So it's not about believing a theory. These are facts. You can verify them and figure out for yourself whether or not these are legitimate questions and crimes.
Roland, I know you come at this from more of an architectural, scientific point of view, and I'm eager to hear what conclusions you've drawn based on that. But same question to you. Were you always suspicious about the official story, or did that evolve? Did your suspicions evolve over time?
I was initially skeptical, but I had no facts about the construction of the building or any of the other details. I was busy with a lot of personal issues at the time. I figured I would wait for the inevitable reports to come out, and I knew that they would be examined by people in the industry, and there would be should be some back and forth about the findings. And generally what happens in a case like this is, over time, the various theories about what occurred converge based upon the examination of the evidence, and it pretty much comes to be known what the problem was. In this case, the buildings shouldn't have collapsed. My immediate perception was that the buildings should not have collapsed, the towers. They should have been able to withstand the impact of the airliners. And in fact, that was true. The designers of the building did design the buildings to withstand the impacts of the airliners. So they knew that that was a possibility. They put it into the design specifications. So that was any time in engineering when you have a failure and you've designed specifically to avoid that failure, you have a problem. So something was wrong. I figured the reports would hopefully sort that out. And after the reports came out, the first report came out on the towers in 2005, and the National Institute of Standards and Technology performed that study. And pretty much immediately, people began to look at the report, which was extensive, 14,000 pages of information. But some engineers and architects began to look at that and see that there were unanswered problems that they had encountered. And so they began to point out what those problems were. Richard Gage was an architect lived in my area there at the time I was living in the East Bay in California. And he was going around pointing out, he had a program, and he said, look, there's problems with this analysis, that the impacts and the plane cargo, the fuel, ignited the office furnishings, and that caused the buildings to fail in the manner that they did. It doesn't make sense. And he had some pretty good arguments about why that was true. So I signed his petition asking for a new investigation. And one thing led to another. And, many years later, here I am actually chairman of the board of that organization.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. You're listening to The Other Side of Midnight. My guests are Mike Berger and Roland Engel. So, gentlemen, if I can ask, based on your research, either in terms of following the breadcrumbs of financial malfeasance and looking at puts and so forth, Mike, or following the mechanics of what happened and the what you view as the unlikelihood of the official story being able to bring down those towers, Roland, what is your best guess or your operating theory as to what happened, and how does that differ from the official story? I'll begin with whichever of you gentlemen want to begin first. Roland, you want to start?
Sure. Okay. When we looked at the Twin Towers reports, for example, and later on, 3 years later, the report on Building 7 came out, and we also examined that. We found a lot of anomalies in the reports that indicated that certain evidence was being omitted and certain evidence had been destroyed and certain evidence was being fabricated to create another narrative explaining why the buildings collapsed. So we studied that. We compiled our information, and we asked the National Institute of Standards and Technology and their staff to engage in a discussion with us about our findings as compared to theirs. And they, in very uncharacteristic fashion, I mean, this is a process that goes on in engineering all the time. Anytime you have a failure, you want to find out what caused it so that you can prevent it from occurring in the future. So this is a very important matter, especially in this case where thousands of people were killed and it affected world events. So we were somewhat surprised to find that the National Institute of Standards and Technology did not want to discuss this with us at all. They simply said, we stand by our report. Well, this is not the way things are done in the engineering profession. Forensic examinations are common, and a lot of times there's money involved, there's political matters involved, as there was in this case. And for them to simply say that they stood by their reports without responding to any of our inquiries was, frankly, unprofessional and uncharacteristic of what goes on in our profession. So immediately we began to smell a rat. Why were they refusing to have a discussion with us about our findings, which were not political, but had to do with the mechanics of how the building would react in response to the damage that it suffered.
So, Roland, I understand where you're coming from on the mechanics aspect of this and the frustration about the manipulation of evidence. Do you have an operating theory, and it's fine if you don't, as to who was actually responsible for carrying this out?
No. We're following the evidence. What we do have is a finding that there were hundreds and hundreds of engineers that were called in to examine the evidence, and some of them were complicit in the decisions that derailed the investigation and took it away from the actual examination of the evidence and where it would have normally led. Our findings would indicate that the buildings were brought down by controlled demolition, some sort of explosives, and there was nanothermite, one of the explosives and incendiaries, was found in great quantities in the dust and debris. So we know that nanothermite was at least one of the incendiaries that were used to bring the buildings down. So that meant that the buildings had to be pre-wired, those explosives had to be planted before the event. And so that, the evidence takes us there.
Right. That would seem to suggest that there was some sort of inside job here. It wasn't just a result of these airplanes causing the World Trade Center to blow up. Mike, let me bring you in here. Same question. Do you have an operating theory as to what happened and who was responsible?
Well, in any investigation, the first thing is you follow the money and you follow the facts, and then you see where they lead. So the question is, if the government claims that Osama bin Laden was behind it, you can go to the FBI's website and look for yourself at Mr. bin Laden's wanted poster. The FBI does not list the crimes of September 11th. When contacted for comment, we were told by a spokesperson that there is no evidence the FBI has linking bin Laden to the crimes. Second, in a question that nobody remembers, what happened to our air defenses? Most people do not know. They remember Condoleezza Rice telling us nobody could have imagined planes flying into buildings. Do you remember her saying that, Frank?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, ironically, the military was running multiple war games that actually involved hijacking commercial planes. This was asked in open testimony. I was there in D.C. When they were asked. First of all, the Pentagon admitted that they were injecting false radar blips on the air traffic controller screens as part of one war game, which is why they weren't able to follow 11 and 175 into the towers, and we're still looking for them. They were asked in open testimony. This is all recorded. You can go look it up. When they ended those war games or those blips, and they said, oh, we'll have to check, but we believe it was after the Pentagon was hit. Then also, in a footnote on the commission report, let me get you the exact citing, footnote 76 to chapter 1, the CDRs, the cockpit voice recorders, and the FDRs, the flight data recorders from American 11 and United 175 were not found.
So, Mike...
Hold on. This came out in 2004, correct?
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a book that William Bunch at the Philadelphia Daily News got a hold of, which was published in print in August of 2003, with the following quote from Frank DeMasi of Engine Company 261 in Queens. In the book Behind the Scenes, he describes, if you needed anything, go ask the ATV guy. They're the gopher guys. I met Frank. Frank's no longer with us. On page 108 comes the revelation, quote, at one point, I was assigned to take federal agents around the site to search for the black boxes from the planes. We were getting ready to go out. My ATV was parked at the top of the stairs at the Brook Brothers entrance area. We loaded up about $1 million worth of equipment and strapped it into the ATV. When we got into the ATV to take off, the agent accidentally pushed me forward. The ATV was already in reverse, and my foot went down on the gas pedal. We went down the stairs in reverse. Fortunately, everything was okay. There were a total of 4 black boxes. We found 3.
Wow.
Now, these guys contacted the commission. They never were able to testify.
So, Mike,
and this is in print.
Let me just ask the question.
Assailed the reputation of the guy who edited the book.
Mike, just because we have limited time, and I want to try and cover as much ground as I can with both of you.
To get back to what you were saying, who's responsible, a working theory, who can stand down the Air Force? Who can schedule all of this? When it comes to the financial crimes, most people don't know this, and it's very little talked about. What department was the Secret Service a part of prior to 9/11? Do you know, Frank?
Treasury.
You got it. All right. So do you know what their other task was other than protecting POTUS?
I mean, I think they guarded the Golden Fort Knox and things like that.
Nope.
No?
Financial, cybercrime, and counterfeiting.
So am I to read by what you're saying that you think this was done internally by the U.S. government, including...
No, it's not. It's more complicated than that. We now know for a fact that the Saudis financed directly, connected to the prince, the San Diego cell of hijackers. In Florida, there were reports right after 9/11 that 5 or 6 of the hijackers had Florida driver's licenses with Florida military base addresses. One of the family members testified to the commission with the actual visa applications of the hijackers and showed that they were all incomplete. They all came through, or all those came through the Jeddah consulate in Saudi Arabia, which the Bush administration had fast-track status. So I believe there's a good deal of evidence that many of the alleged hijackers were actually intelligence agents. This was a very complicated
Saudi
event.
intelligence agents or American intelligence agents?
Both.
So,
Both. I mean, federal agents recovered black boxes and then had the 9/11 Commission report claim that they weren't recovered.
So
you can't time travel. The book was printed before the Commission report.
So you believe that some...
I don't believe. These are facts you can look up. It doesn't matter what I believe.
Okay, so if I asked you, Mike, who's responsible for the destruction of the World Trade Center, and you were to answer in less than 10 words, what would you say? Who is responsible?
Your eyes don't lie. You saw a building shred itself by a gravity collapse from a plane where we saw the fuel explode mainly outside of the building.
All right.
The building had baffling systems. I did a documentary in 2006 called Improbable Collapse.
Got it. Thank you, Mike.
The building can't just shred themselves, and 7 wasn't hit by a plane and came down, according to the FEMA report, within 75 feet of its own footprint.
Okay, let me get you to pause and bring in...
Hold on, Frank, why do we have demolition companies if you can just spread jet fuel in a building and light it up?
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom: The Dark Ages. Available May 15th on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Pre-order now.
Rated M for mature.
Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
All right, let me ask the engineer here and the architect, Roland. Roland Angle, I've explored this issue with some debunkers in the past. One of them is a journalist by the name of Jonathan Kay. And the idea of a controlled demolition is one of the most common things that I've heard that deviates from the government's version of events on this. Let me play for you and the audience what Jonathan Kay said about that theory of a controlled demolition, and then let me get you to respond as to why Jonathan Kay is mistaken. This is from
the most
a couple of years ago.
That I've heard in terms of a deviation from the official story is that the Twin Towers were brought down not by the airplanes and the fire they caused, but by what's been described as a controlled demolition, that there were explosives placed within the building, and that caused the building to collapse, not the airplanes and the fire they caused. Why is that theory true or untrue?
Look, internal demolition, yeah, that's one thing that's common to pretty much every flavor of 9/11 conspiracy theory you hear. When it comes to controlled demolition of even a building a fraction the size of the World Trade Center towers, this is a job that takes months. The internal columns, everything has to be stripped. You have teams of hundreds of experts preparing for a long time to do this. The idea that this kind of project could have been done on the sly in a building that something like 40,000 people were working there, WTC1 and WTC2. I mean, it's just, the theory makes no sense.
Roland, what about that? He says, Jonathan Kay says it would have been totally
I can
impractical.
respond to that in 2 seconds, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up. There were contracts to upgrade the fireproofing that coincided with the areas in the building the planes hit. Look at the offices that the planes hit. The largest government bond trading office. I mean, again, financial. Follow the money.
Got it.
And by the way, the counter.
Let me just bring Roland in.
Hold on. One second. Mike, your expert just said Danny Joenko, a Dutch architect, was shown Building 7, and he said, "Are you sure it was the 11th? That can't be." I think this is obviously a building that has been imploded, he confidently
Mike, let me just give Roland an opportunity to comment here.
That would greatly astonish me.
All right, Mike, hang on. Roland, go ahead. Give me your take on what Jonathan Kay said there.
Well, as Mike pointed out, there were contracts that were let prior in the months and years prior to the event, which gave contractors plenty of opportunity to set those explosives at that time. And you know, there was a for instance, in the towers, there was Ace Elevators was given a contract to rehab all 99 elevators in the buildings. And it was a very unbelievable contract. Let me put it that way, because those elevators were some of the most extensive operating systems in high-rise buildings anywhere, and yet the contract to rehab them was given to this tiny little company out of New Jersey called Ace Elevator, which looks for all the world like a CIA cutout, because they only existed a few years before the event, and they indeed went out of business several years afterwards. So it wasn't given to some of the big Otis or the contractors that were actually had the capability to do that work. It was given to this out of nowhere organization that appeared and then disappeared shortly thereafter. So there was plenty of opportunity for people to get in there under the guise of doing other kinds of work and plant the explosives. No problem.
Let me ask you both to answer what I think will be a short question, and then if you do give me a short answer to this, then we'll have time for maybe one more. Investigations into September 11th were not limited to the U.S. alone. They were international experts and organizations that were involved in examining various aspects of what occurred. Are all of these global entities also part of the cover-up, or are they simply mistaken? What do you think, Mike?
I think people generically might refer to this loosely as the deep state, but there is actually a discipline called deep politics, which gets into some of the forces. Mm-hmm. Think about... You live in Brooklyn. Have you ever gone to
gentlemen, hang on.
Meeting?
We have to break, and we'll continue with your answer to that question in a moment. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Should know by the way you popped your car sideways that it wouldn't last. See, you're the kind of person who believes in making out once, love them and leave them fast. Guess I must be
Prince, Little Red Corvette. My guests are Mike Berger and Roland Angle. Mike Berger is executive director of 911truth.org. Roland Angle is the head of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. My question that Mike was answering right before the break, and if you could answer it quickly, Mike, I'd appreciate it, is for other international investigations into September 11th and what occurred, they have not gone along with anything that directly contradicts the United States government. Are these global entities mistaken or part of a cover-up? Quickly, if you can, Mike.
Well, you wanted names. For example, I can give you 19 suspects. These are not mine. These are Kevin Ryan's, but many of them I do agree. This event didn't come out of nowhere. There's a history. If you don't know who Charlie Wilson is, look him up. They made a movie about him, Charlie Wilson's War. Louis Freeh, George Tenet, Richard Clark, Richard Armitage, Michael Canavan, Dwayne Andrews, Benedict Slaney, who was in charge of the FAA that morning. Names you might recognize: Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Ralph Eberhard. He was the commander of NORAD. The special agent in charge of the Secret Service, Carl Truscott. Brian Michael Jenkins was deputy chairman of the crisis management for Kroll, which played a role planning for terrorist events at the World Trade Center. Wirt Walker, he was a 9/11 insider trading suspect.
Okay, so I'm going to say that's a vote for cover-up. Okay, thank you.
Paul Wolfowitz,
Roland,
Paul Bremer, Rudy Giuliani.
Okay, I'm going to put you on lower your mic there, Mike, which I hate to do. Roland, same question. Do you think this was a cover-up, or are these other entities just mistaken?
Well, first of all, I want to correct you in that we've done a study of all the studies that were done. Most of them were done by foreign universities. And actually, most of them came down agreeing with us that all indications are that it was a controlled demolition. So it's not accurate to say that all these other agencies, most of which were universities, agreed with the official narrative, because they don't. So that's one of the things that we're trying to bring out. We're trying to say, listen, there's a real controversy around this subject in the engineering field. It is not. We haven't come to converge upon one single theory as to what we think happened. In fact, as time has gone on, there's got more and more people agreeing with us and less agreeing with the official narrative. So that is a real problem for them.
In 30 seconds, 20 seconds, if you can, Roland, do you also believe that something fishy happened at the Pentagon as well, or is your suspicion of an incorrect narrative limited only to the World Trade Center?
We haven't looked at the Pentagon at all because we didn't feel that the evidence was strong enough there for us to take a position on it. And it's a very controversial subject that's caused a lot of division in the 9/11 movement.
Thank you, gentlemen. Roland Angle, head of president of the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and Mike Berger, executive director of 911truth.org. As always, keep asking questions.
Going to the gym can be discouraging, especially if you're putting in the work but barely seeing changes. But with Tonal, you can actually see your progress with every workout. Tonal provides the convenience of a full gym and the expertise of a personal trainer anytime at home with one sleek system. Designed to reduce your mental load, Tonal is the ultimate strength training system, helping you focus less on workout planning and more on getting results. No more second-guessing your technique. Tonal gives you real-time coaching cues to dial in your form and help you lift safely and effectively. After a quick assessment, Tonal sets the optimal weight for every move and adjusts in 1 pound increments as you get stronger, so you're always challenged. Tonal lets you choose from a variety of expert-led workouts, from strength to aero hit to yoga and mobility, to keep you coming back for more. For a limited time, go to Tonal.com to get $500 off your Tonal purchase, plus a free 4-year warranty. That's Tonal.com for $500 off, plus a free 4-year warranty. Tonal.com.